You're listening to Coffee and Sports from Wire to Wire Sports Network on the National Streaming Sports Roku channel.
I'm walking through a ghost town, y'all ain't playing my sounds. Don't tell me to calm down, don't tell me to calm down. Only time I go backwards is when I wanna moonwalk. Don't test me, my mood's wrong, don't test me, my mood's wrong. We are who we say that we are. You were lost in the stars, and it's all from the start. Never running no pace, never on the right page, but we still read that book, and we still run that race. Mississippi Racer riding out, no shortcuts, no time for that. Mississippi Racer riding out, till the wheels fall off, I'm driving that. Mississippi Racer riding out, we'll stop burning, strike the match. Mississippi Racer riding out, red light, green light, red light, good night. Hey, red light, green light, red light, good night. 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 Time to chill, don't sweat it.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show presented by Wire to Wire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine. I am Chris, and of course, that over there, that is Mo. Mo, happy Tuesday, sir.
Happy Tuesday, partner, and happy Tuesday to everybody out there joining us.
Guys, it is great to have you here this morning. Let's start with this. As I just, play with our layout here to make us look the way I want us to look. There it is. That's the magic for you. All right, Mo, we touched on this a little bit yesterday. Let's back up to last season, okay? So a story comes out midway through the season last year, or maybe it was a little bit earlier than that, that the Dallas Cowboys thought about pursuing Derrick Henry, and they decided, he's not really a fit for our system. So we're not going to have him in for an interview. We're not going to really kick the tires on him because we just don't think it's a good fit. So instead of bringing in, something that we need, something that we don't have, something that would instantly make us a better offense, we're just not going to do it. And they didn't. And they said, you know what we are going to do, though? We're going to bring in Zeke. We're going to bring back Ezekiel Elliott. The same guy that was here last season, the same guy that was part of a running attack that was god-awful. The same guy that we let go because it wasn't very effective or very good for us. And that's what they decided to do. Then you look at the Dallas Cowboys the last week and a half. They went from Super Bowl winning head coach Mike McCarthy, who, despite his shortcomings, despite this past season, which, by the way, most of it was played without Dak Prescott, despite 3 consecutive seasons of double-digit wins and a couple of NFC East division titles in there, decided that it was time to move on. It's fine. It happens. They went from Mike McCarthy to flirting with Deion Sanders. Now, we don't know if Deion would have taken an interview. Maybe he wouldn't have. He didn't put out any indicators that he would have taken an interview. But Deion Sanders, up-and-coming college head coach, former Dallas Cowboy, name recognition, a name that got everyone in Cowboy land excited. Then they landed on Schottenheimer. their offensive coordinator. And that is the brand new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. How is this not the same thing as bringing back Zeke instead of going after Derrick Henry? Because what was the Dallas Cowboys offense like this season, Mo? Wasn't great. What was their offensive scheme like this season? Wasn't great.
No, they did a lot of punting.
Their offensive coordinator wasn't viewed as one of the up-and-coming offensive coordinators in the NFL. Their offense coordinator isn't viewed as one of the next top head coaching candidates. Mo, I didn't even know who their offensive coordinator was this season. You want to know why? Because he wasn't calling the plays, Mo. Mike McCarthy was calling the plays. So you not only hired somebody that was responsible for a questionable offensive scheme the entire season, you didn't even hire the guy who was calling your own damn plays this year, because that was Mike. But that's the guy the Dallas Cowboys went with. A couple of things here, Mo. I guess being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys isn't all that it used to be, because did they even really try? Did they even really make an effort? Was there an effort to be made? Mo, is it possible Jerry Jones realized very quickly in this process that once he got a feel that maybe Deion didn't want to do it, that maybe Deion wasn't going to be the slam dunk that he thought Deion was going to be? Is it possible Jerry Jones realized there may not be a lot of guys that want to be the head coach of my team? And this was his knee-jerk reaction? Give it to the guy who you know is going to say yes? Because let me tell you, Mo, if Dallas went on this extensive head coaching search and brought in candidate after candidate, and then we find out during the process that guys are turning down interviews, or guys are interviewing but they're taking jobs somewhere else, or guys are interviewing and they're interested, but then after the interview they're no longer interested, well, that's not a good look. Is that what the writing on the wall was? I don't know. But at the end of the day, Mo, if you are a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, this was not it. This was a failure. This was a disappointment. This was bringing Zeke back to fix the running back. Nothing about this screams most valuable franchise in all of sports. Nothing about this screams America's team. And we find out after the hiring that a lot of this was really pushed not by Jerry, who, by the way, the week prior to this hiring, the report was Jerry's gone rogue. Jerry's out there. He's the one making the decisions. He's personally taking up the head coaching job search. He's not even telling people who he's going after. He's just making a list and he's making phone calls, and he's going to. I wonder how those phone calls went, Mo, because when it went to the guy that was already in the house, that tells me maybe the phone calls didn't go so well, Mo.
My guess is the phone calls were more of the number you have reached. I think Jerry Jones went into this offseason with one of two guys on his mind. Deion Sanders. I think Belichick was out of the picture. I think he wanted to kick the tires on Deion to see if he was interested. I think Deion said all the right things when they brought it up. It's intriguing. It would be interesting. He talked about his love for Jerry Jones. I think Deion wanted to stay friends with Jerry Jones. And probably the best thing for their relationship is for Deion not to become the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, because Jerry Jones likes yes men. He likes yes men. Jerry Jones likes to micromanage. To your point, I don't want to kill Schottenheimer because he might be a good coach, but the Dallas Cowboys is the highest profile football team in the NFL. And to be quite blunt, I don't see where he's an upgrade from Mike McCarthy. I don't see it. I don't think he's an upgrade. And the job that he was supposed to do, remember, he didn't actually do it. Mike McCarthy called the plays. So I don't know what Schottenheimer's job was, I guess, to confirm them. You know what I mean? Like, McCarthy would call the play, he go sprint, draw, and he go confirm. And that was his, that was his contribution. This is such a Dallas Cowboy move. Like, they've become that team now where you expect these types of moves. When they went out and wasted a pick to go get I think it's a receiver from Carolina, that's a Dallas Cowboy move. When you pass up on Derrick Henry, who, by the way, not only is he great on his own, but he would have made Dak's life 10 times easier. And you passed up on that. I think Dallas is a franchise in decline, and not in the way in terms of merchandising and for whatever reason popularity, but when you're talking about being relevant or elite, they're not going to be that. People are going to talk about them all the time. They're money, their box office to talk about. But when we start talking about the best of the best, the very good football teams, they're not amongst them. They're not. I saw that press conference. I don't know if you saw the press conference. That's got to be the worst introductory press conference I've ever seen. It reeked of, yeah, look, he's not the best thing out there, but he's okay. I mean, he's all right. I mean, the fan base shouldn't get excited, but yet he's our guy. He's like, I mean, it was god awful. And to me, Schottenheimer sitting there being quiet. I was like, dude, he's not raving about you the way when you make a hire, he's settling for you. It was horrible. And look, he may prove me wrong, and the Cowboys might win 11 games next year. My guess is I'm going to be consistent. They're not going to make the playoffs next year, just like I knew they weren't going to make the playoffs this year. It all starts up top, and they're at the top of their tier. Their ownership and their management, they're actually amongst the worst. They're not very good, and they don't let coaches coach. You're not going to win football games. The players aren't going to trust that coach. I just think that it's a franchise that's in decline, and it's never going to be on the upswing until Jerry Jones walks away.
And to your point, Mo, it's the perfect coaching hire for Jerry Jones. Who is Schottenheimer? Dad was somebody. Who is he? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. He's got no resume worth even sticking in front of somebody. He's just a guy. And he's just a guy that is going to do exactly what Jerry wants. It is going to be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is going to be an extension of Jerry Jones. Now, we don't know behind the scenes how much Mike McCarthy combated against what Jerry wanted. We don't know behind the scenes what the relationship was between Mike and Jerry. We can assume based on things we've heard, but we don't really know. But we do know at the end of the day, Mike McCarthy is a Super Bowl head-winning coach. We do know at the end of the day that Mike McCarthy has a resume where if he really truly believes in something and he thinks Jerry's being nonsensical, you would have to imagine Mike McCarthy would be like, no, we're going to do it this way because I'm the coach,
right?
And I know things. I don't see that happening with this guy. And I'm not taking a shot at him. I'm really not. But that's the kind of hire this is. That's the kind of hire when you flirt with the idea of during, the end of the season, Bill Belichick's name was floating around and then he goes to North Carolina, so that's off the table. And then the second name that was right there with Belichick was Deion Sanders, and that's the first move it looks like the Cowboys make. They have the phone call. There might be an interview on the horizon, and then all of that quickly goes away when Deion releases the statement, and you're like, okay, what's the pivot? And then a few days later, this is the pivot. Now, mind you, this is going on while other teams are hiring head coaches. Aaron Glenn goes to the New York Jets. Did you see his introductory press conference? That was electric. That guy stole the show. He was a WWE wrestler cutting a WWE promo during his introductory press conference. I wanted to go play for the New York Jets listening to his introductory press conference. You got Pete Carroll coming back into the NFL. He's going over to the Las Vegas Raiders. Marshawn Lynch is hijacking his introductory press conference, welcoming him to the Raiders. That got me all pepped up. I was excited about that. You got Mike Vrabel going to the New England Patriots. He's trying to bring the band back together. He's got what's-his-name back as the offensive coordinator for his 85th stint as offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots, bringing back the Tom Brady days. Like, you got all these other coaching things happening in the NFL, and it's good fits, or it's name recognition, or it's up-and-coming potential stars like Ben Johnson going to Chicago and pairing him with the quarterback.
I like that one, though.
And then you got Schottenheimer getting promoted out there in Dallas. Mo, it like you said, it's a franchise in the decline. It's a move that I think the only people who are happy about it are non-Cowboy fans, because it's hilarious. It's hilarious to see that this is actually what the franchise chose to do and thought was going to be a good decision. And we'll see. We'll see where it pans out. It's not like they don't have talent on the team. They just don't have a lot of great talent on the team. And they got a lot of holes. And one of the holes, I think, is still at the head coach position. Mo, every time, this is the fourth time now, every time that Patrick Mahomes beats Josh Allen in the playoffs, we have to be reminded of the trade. And if you're Buffalo, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because technically Buffalo, here's the reason the Kansas City Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, because you are the ones that back in 2017 traded your 10th pick to the Kansas City Chiefs, a pick that they then used to draft Patrick Mahomes. In Buffalo, what did you receive for that 10th pick all the way back in 2017? Well, you received the number 27 pick that year, which you turned into Tre'Davious White. You received the number 91 pick, which you then traded away to draft Zay Jones and Deion Dawkins. And you received the first-round pick of the Chiefs in 2018, which you also traded away to draft Trayvon Edmonds. So Trayvon Edmonds, Zay Jones, Deion Dawkins, and Tre'Davious White. That is what you got in return to allow the Kansas City Chiefs to draft Patrick Mahomes, the guy that has ended your Super Bowl aspirations 4 times with Josh Allen. And all I can do is just smile.
I figured you'd enjoy that. I could tell by when you were telling that there was a theme there where there was some joy coming out of the cracks of your mouth. There's some joy there.
There was. Now, obviously, they didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, it's very tongue-in-cheek. Obviously, Buffalo could never have predicted that. But I do find joy in it. Let's talk about this, Mo. Patrick Mahomes currently has 17 playoff wins in 20 playoff games. Sink your brain around that. He's played 20 playoff games in his NFL career. He has won 17 of them. He has the second most playoff wins by a quarterback in NFL history. He isn't 30 yet. And the only NFL quarterback ever to win more playoff games than him is Tom Brady, who won 35 out of 48 playoff games. If you were to just double Mahomes' numbers, he's played in 20 playoff games. If you say, what's he going to look like after 40? If he stays at this pace, he'd be 34 for 40, which would be a ridiculous feat. Mo, he's not there yet. But man, oh man, how fun is this Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady comparison going to be when it's all said and done? Because I think we're going to get with Mahomes and Brady what everybody thinks we have with LeBron and MJ. And I don't think you're ever going to get it with LeBron and MJ, but I think you're going to get it with Mahomes and Brady.
I like that comparison better because Patrick Mahomes is on pace to catch Tom Brady and do it up clearly at a much faster pace. Now, Super Bowl wins don't come easy, but here are the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West, and they are enjoying the type of success Brady and the Patriots have enjoyed in the AFC East for almost 2 decades. I get it that teams get better. Another freak quarterback will be around the corner, but like you said, he's not 30 yet, and I think this Chiefs team I'm talking about offensively is the worst offense they've probably ever had. What happens when he gets talent around him? You know what I mean? Like, because the really great quarterbacks, Chris, they age well, right? When he's 32 or 33 and he's not scrambling, but he's doing the Aaron Rodgers sidestep more, extending plays, but he's got a deep threat who can beat or dominate one-on-ones, or he's got a tight end that can get you vertically like a young Kelsey did consistently. Like, what happens when he gets a 1,500-yard running back behind him? It's scary to think what he would be like had he still had your guy, Tyreek Hill, on the roster, right? They've had this much success without an elite receiver like Tyreek Hill. But had they had him, I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow's chances of beating him greatly diminish. We are going to have that conversation. And I get it. Some people are premature, I think, in saying, well, he's already caught Brady. I'm not there. But I do think a three-peat is kind of like a cheat code to catching him because it's something Brady didn't do. And he will already have think about that. He will already have he's already caught and passed Montana. Like the three-peat, and if he adds another one after the three-peat, along with the other statistics and accolades he's going to receive over the breadth of his career, yeah, that conversation, it's going to be an amazing conversation, but I do like that conversation a lot better than the other one.
Following his defeat of Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, Patrick Mahomes dropped a quote, which I get, and I don't have an issue with him saying it. It's just, it's one of those things that you think when you hear the quote, Mo, you're like, that's something you say like after you're both retired, not when you're both kind of still in the heat of it. He said, "I'm sorry it had to be us," referring to him and Josh. He then went on to talk about how him and Josh Allen are good friends. He respects the hell out of Josh Allen's game. He knows that to be the best in the AFC, you have to beat the best in the AFC, and he thinks that Josh Allen is one of the best in the AFC. And at the end of the day, he's sorry that it had to be them. Obviously, you know, what he's referring to is the fact that he is the one that keeps ending Josh Allen's quest to get to a Super Bowl. And moving forward, Mo, he will probably continue to be the one that puts an end to Josh Allen's quest to get to a Super Bowl. And I get it. We talk about this all the time. In a different era, Josh Allen could be the guy in the NFL. He could be the face of the NFL. He and the Buffalo Bills could be the ones going to multiple Super Bowls over a course of 3, 4, 5 years if Patrick wasn't playing right now. If the Chiefs weren't the Chiefs, I could very easily see it being the Buffalo Bills. I could very easily see it being the Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar is that guy. And Lamar is the one winning MVPs, going to multiple Super Bowls, and doing all the things. But unfortunately for both of them, they are playing at a time where they are in their prime, and Mahomes is in his prime as well. And it's just a situation where, what are you going to do? You're good to great. He's great to elite. What are you going to do?
And the conversation with Brady, I remember, was Brady's great. He's the greatest quarterback of all time, but he also has one of the all-time great coaches in Belichick, which I don't disagree that Belichick's a great coach. I think that the same conversation we're going to have with Mahomes and Brady, I think you're going to have with Andy Reid and Belichick. And the difference between the two is Andy Reid is very much involved in the offense. Andy Reid is an elite play caller in his own right. And I've heard people say, well, Andy Reid didn't win any Super Bowls before he had Patrick Mahomes. No, he didn't. But he was still a great coach. I remember those Eagles teams that went to all those conference championships. Easily they had the worst receiving core I ever had. Like, talk about just a bunch of – they just had guys. They just had guys out there. They had Donovan McNabb, they had Brian Westbrook, and they had some guys. They did not have great talent on the outside or elite players. And as talented as McNabb was, he was not a great thrower of the football. Andy Reid maxed out Donovan McNabb the same way he did when he came to the Kansas City Chiefs. They had a lot of success before Mahomes. They didn't win a Super Bowl, but he maxed out everything Alex Smith could ever be because he's a great coach. He's a great offensive-minded coach. And I think his resume is growing the same way Patrick's is growing. And I feel like Andy Reid is going to elevate himself, I think, easily into the top 5 coaches of all time when it's all said and done.
Mo, as we prepare for the Super Bowl, and we'll get more into this next week. Listen, you're going to see a couple of things heading into the Super Bowl. If you are an Eagles fan, you have every right to be confident in your team. I think that your team is playing some of their best football at the best time of the season, which is in the playoffs. I think these last couple of games with the Eagles, you are starting to see what we thought we were going to see more consistently from the Eagles during the regular season. And if you're to tell me that the Eagles can play in the Super Bowl to their fullest potential on paper, then this is going to be a very good game. And it might even be a game the Eagles should be favored in.
Oh, I think
all things considered.
I agree.
However, you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. You are talking about the three-peat. You are talking about playoff Pat. You are talking about everything that comes with playing the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you are a Chiefs fan, you also, in my opinion, Mo, have every right to feel like you are going to go out there and you are going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Because like we have said for the better part of the entire time that we've been doing this show, until someone does it, why are we going to bet against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Right.
Because time and time again, they've been in the hole. They've had no chance. Their backs were against the wall. This was finally the year. And the past 2 years, they've won championships. So what is different about this year? And again, you can rattle off all you want to rattle off about the Philadelphia Eagles, and most of those will be completely valid points. But do you have to resort back to the fact of, yeah, well, you could have said the same thing about, the Bills and the Ravens the past 2 seasons in the AFC Championship game. You could have said the same thing about the 2 teams the last 2 years in the Super Bowl that the Kansas City Chiefs beat. I get it. I totally get it. So Kansas City Chiefs fans are going to feel like everything is in their hands.
Right.
Eagles fans are going to feel like everything is in their hands. And then if you're not a Chiefs fan, you probably hate the Chiefs and you're siding with the Eagles by default. So I get it. Or you hate them both and you don't care who wins and you're watching for commercials. I get that as well, Mo. But that's kind of the boat that we are going to be in as we are prepping for the Super Bowl and we are getting ready to head into Super Bowl season. But listen, I think we're going to see a great game in 2 weeks. I'm excited for it. I'm not going to make my pick yet. We're going to save those for next week. But if everything plays out the way it should on paper, this could be quite the Super Bowl.
Oh, I agree. And let's not forget, these 2 teams are just 2 years removed from competing in the Super Bowl in another entertaining Super Bowl. So there is a motivating factor for the Eagles. These aren't the exact same Chiefs and Eagles, but the core players, the only real big difference of the core players is obviously Saquon Barkley. But a lot of these Eagles, that should be added motivation. How many times do you get to take a second bite of the apple when you get an opportunity to take down Mahomes in the Super Bowl? So I think that is going to be a driving force for them as well. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. On paper, just on paper, if you look at both sides of the football, yeah, I easily could see the Eagles being favored. I have no problem with anybody that would favor them because ultimately football games are won in the trenches, and the Eagles are elite on the defense and offensive line. And for the Chiefs to compete, they're going to have to step their game up, especially their offensive line versus the Eagles' defensive line.
Mo, the field has been set for the NBA All-Star Slam Dunk competition. Mac McClung is looking to defend his back-to-back dunk championships, and he is going to do it by competing against San Antonio Spurs rookie Stephon Castle, Chicago Bulls rookie Matas Bazilis, and then from the Bucks, Andre Jackson Jr. Is this the best we could do, Mo? Is this the best we could put out there?
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not blown away. I mean, honestly, just off of the names,
Mac, who won it twice in a row, 2 rookies, and Andre Jackson Jr.
Yeah, I do think I've seen Castle play. I know Jackson Jr.'s got hops. Castle's incredibly explosive, and yet, if I were a betting man, I would say Matt McClung's going to win again. It's not the most exciting. He is, but it's not the most impressive field. Come on, I mean
it's not. It's not.
But he's fun to watch. I look forward to seeing him compete because he always comes up with something a little bit different. So I'm going to watch. I'm going to tune in.
Mo, Isaiah Thomas is pursuing an NBA comeback after returning and joining the Jazz's Salt Lake City affiliate. What do we make of an Isaiah Thomas comeback in the NBA? Didn't he try this 2 years ago?
He did when he was 2 years younger. Now, I'm not sure, but you're great at keeping up with the numbers and stuff, but I'd have to believe Isaiah Thomas has to be 34, 35 now, somewhere in that range.
He's in his mid-30s, yes.
Right. And he's a diminutive point guard. So he's like what, 5'9", 5'10". I don't know. And so a lot of things that he had going for him at his peak, his quickness, his ability to escape, that's not there anymore. So I would root for him, but I'm not sure and it's with, I guess he's going to come back. He's trying to come back with Utah, right? Like, what is the impact of his comeback, even if he makes the main roster? Because Utah's just playing for the lottery right now. Like, they're not trying to win anything. So, look, I wish Isaiah Thomas well, because I've always been a huge fan of his, but I just, in terms of the impact in the league, it's zero impact, because Utah's one of the worst teams in basketball.
So remember, Thomas's 2 best seasons came with the Boston Celtics. Over those 2 years, he averaged 24.7 and 6 assists. He was a key part of Boston getting to the 2007 Eastern Conference Finals. And then shortly thereafter, he had the hip injury.
Right.
Since suffering the hip injury, he has appeared in 115 NBA games with 8 different teams since the end of the 2017 season, when Boston went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Mo, he simply hasn't been the same since the injury. He lost his explosiveness.
Right.
He lost his quick first step. He just didn't recover from the hip to get back to the form he had before the hip, which happens. Like, it was a serious hip injury that he suffered, and he just never fully got back from it. And like you said, the league don't stop for nobody. He got older. His skills diminished a little bit because of the injury. Nothing he can do about that. And the league passed him by. Now, he did get some time with the Suns last year, and due to some injury things, probably got more time than we thought he was going to get. But I mean, in all fairness, and I'm not taking a shot at Isaiah Thomas here, but no one walked away from what happened with the Suns last season and the impact that he had, and saying, okay, let's go. This guy is going to land somewhere next season, or he's earned his spot. No one thought that. We were like, man, they got to play Isaiah. Like, that's what we're getting down to. Like, because there's no other, like, they're that banged up that this is where we are. And that's not a knock on Isaiah Thomas.
It's not.
As far as him as a player, he was 34 years old last season. He is an older, beat up player that really is just a shell of what he was in his prime. And the fact that when he signed with Phoenix in the first place to make his comeback last season, the general consensus was okay, because no one thought it was going to go anywhere. And then he actually got some playing time, and everyone was like, okay, because they didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And then you watched him play, and you were like, okay, because it wasn't anything to make you change your opinion of what you thought it was going to be when he signed, when you found out he was going to get minutes. And then when he actually played those minutes, you kind of felt like you felt beforehand. And now he's going to go to the affiliate in Utah. And like you said, Utah's not playing to win. So, maybe he will get some playing time there. He's not going to make him better. I don't know. But it's tough, because his basketball IQ is still probably where it needs to be, right?
Sure.
And what he brings to the floor outside of his athletic ability is probably still there, but he just doesn't have all the pieces to be a productive NBA player right now. And that's not even taking into consideration the fact that he's 35. And a lot of 35-year-olds lose the step. They lose the quickness. They lose the athleticism. Not everyone. We had this conversation yesterday. LeBron is one of one. Not everyone is LeBron James. I'm sorry. Not everyone's bodies age like that. You don't see it. That is why LeBron is so freaking incredible, because 40-year-olds aren't supposed to be as good as they were when they were 30. And he is.
He is.
So,
and here's the thing about Isaiah Thomas. At his peak, Chris, when he was on the Celtics, at his peak, when he was a tremendous offensive player, he was a defensive liability. That's at his peak. That was at his peak.
His very best.
Right. So now you're a diminished version of yourself fighting for a roster spot to be a rotation player. And again, I'm 1000% rooting for him. I just don't know I get it, and I respect the fact that he thinks my NBA journey is not over. I still got something left in the tank, and I would love it if that were so. I would love it even more if that were so, and he was on a contender, and he could play meaningful minutes for a contender. But that being said, he's trying to play basketball. He's trying to make a roster. He's trying to be in the rotation. I wish him well. But it's difficult because Utah is a younger team that's actually tanking to add more younger players because they're trying to rebuild. I don't see his role on that franchise going forward. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's going to be another one of those stints that he had with Phoenix where he will get playing time. He might even have a couple of games where you're like, there's still something there. But I don't know if what's going to come of it, because then we're going to go into next season and he's going to be 35. And like you said, the explosiveness, the quickness, that doesn't come back. And he was never a big man to begin with. I believe he's 5'9". He might be shorter than that. So I'm wishing him well because I'm a fan. I just don't know how this is going to end.
Speaking of not knowing how it's going to end, we know how it's going to end in Miami. We just don't know how we're going to get there. But in the meantime, it is falling apart quickly if you are the Miami Heat. It was less than 48 hours ago that the Miami Herald reported that Jimmy Butler was expected to rejoin the team and face the Orlando Magic after his most recent suspension. And then you're like, okay, sounds okay if you're a Miami Heat fan. And then less than 24 hours after that, we find out that Jimmy Butler decided he was going to walk out of the shootout when he found out that, yeah, he's going to face the Orlando Magic, but he'll be coming off of the bench. He's no longer going to be a starter for the Miami Heat. And he was like, nope, didn't come back for that. And now he's been suspended indefinitely. And then, Mo, we find out this morning that the Miami Heat are lowering their asking price for Jimmy Butler in a trade to expedite the process to get Jimmy out of Miami quicker. This is not a good look for the Miami Heat. So a couple of things here, and you are obviously a little more tied into the NBA than I am, Mo, but clearly whatever conversations took place between the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler ahead of him returning to the team to face the Orlando Magic, those conversations clearly did not include the little tidbit of information of him not starting. Because I would have to imagine, based on how everything deteriorated so rapidly in the last 24 hours, that had you told Jimmy Butler ahead of him returning to the team, oh, by the way, when you come back, we're not going to start you, he never would have came back. He didn't come back just to walk out again if he knew he wasn't going to be starting. So, and maybe they floated it, right? Maybe it was one of those things where they're like, we need you back. We're going to be doing some things. We're going to be trying some new rotations. Like, maybe they kind of touched on it indirectly and never actually said the words, you're not starting. And in his mind, he was just like, yeah, try some new rotations, whatever, do what you got to do. Because in his mind, he's starting.
Right.
So maybe they did one of those, but it doesn't change the fact, Mo, they didn't tell him ahead of time he wasn't starting. What the hell did you think was going to happen after everything that's gone on between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat this season? What did you think was going to happen when you got him back in the building? And at his first official team thing after being back in the building, you're like, oh, by the way, you're not starting. How did you think that was going to go? Did you think he was just going to be like, oh, it's good. We're good. No. Of course it wasn't going to be like that. Of course you were going to get a big reaction out of him. And you turning around and suspending him indefinitely after he walked out of the what are you doing? You're not making it better either. It's almost like you didn't tell him so he could do this. So you could then suspend him indefinitely.
Bingo.
And you could turn around and be like, what do you want us to do?
Bingo.
He quit on the team.
You have hit on exactly what happened. This is all Pat Riley. Eric Spoelstra is the head coach, but there is one boss, one voice in that organization. It is Pat Riley. And what Jimmy did by the thing about finding my joy and all those, and when I want to trade and I want out, this is Pat Riley saying, I'll oblige you, but I'll do it my way on my time. And let's be clear about something else too. Jimmy Butler's game hasn't changed. Everybody in the league knows what Jimmy Butler brings to the table and what he can do. So if I'm Pat Riley and you want out, I don't have a problem with telling you you're not going to start. We don't want to risk injury, Jimmy, because you want out. And let's be honest, you're injury prone. You miss a lot of games, fam. You miss a lot of games. So we need to keep you healthy so we can get you up out of here. But Pat Riley knew as soon as they told Jimmy, you're not starting, he knew Jimmy was going to bounce. But he wanted Jimmy to bounce so he could turn around and go, we need to suspend you indefinitely. You know why you can suspend him indefinitely? Well, now that he's suspended indefinitely, Jimmy's going to be very healthy when you trade him. He's not going to be playing. Pat Riley, you can't play chess with Pat Riley because you ain't going to win. Now, they've lowered their asking price, but I thought they were going to do that all along anyway. You're never going to get equal value. When you trade a star, you almost never get equal value. I would argue that on the back end of this, is Pat Riley being a little bit petty? Sure. But he's kind of using Jimmy's personality and Jimmy's temper against Jimmy. The reaction was exactly the reaction that he wanted. Had he told Jimmy, or they told Jimmy, you're not going to be starting, we're doing something different, and let's be honest, you don't even really want to be here, so we need to move on from you anyway. And Jimmy had to turn around and go, well, I'm a pro. It's fine. You know, it's about being a professional. That would have blown Pat Riley's mind. He wouldn't have been expecting that. But Jimmy literally gave him everything he wanted so that they could turn around and suspend him. They're going to trade him. They're going to absolutely trade him. And if I'm Pat Riley and I know you want out and I want you gone, with your injury history, I don't want you to play. I'll be stuck with you. Remember, Jimmy's getting ready to hit unrestricted. He's an unrestricted free agent. So wherever he goes, he better love it because it'll be a rental. Because he's gonna go to the highest bidder in the offseason. So yeah, it's not. I don't know if it's a good look for the organization, but I think if you're Pat Riley and you're dealing with a disgruntled star who's been very vocal, saying the things that he said about the organization, I actually don't have a problem with how Pat Riley's handling Jimmy Butler. If you want out and I'm going to get you out, I'll do it, but I'll do it at my pace and at my time. The same way I felt when Damian Lillard asked to be traded and people were like, they owe it to Dame for all he's done. And I'm like, I don't owe you nothing. You want out, that's fine, but I'm not going to trade you exactly where you want to go. I'm going to trade you where I get the best deal. I owe you no favors. Jimmy would have had Jimmy's case would be, I took you to 2 finals. Pat Riley's response would be, you did, but we didn't win either one of those. So, you know what I mean?
And I paid you.
Like,
You got paid, right?
It's not like you did it for, right. It's not like you went to those 2 finals for free. So, yeah, remember, I moved on from D Wade, and he brought me a couple of titles. If I moved on from Wade and told him he could walk, oh, you can definitely walk. So, yeah, what's going on with Miami? It's not shocking to me, not if you know who Pat Riley is.
Mo, let's close on this. We talked a lot of WNBA this past season, and we're going to talk a lot of WNBA this upcoming season as well. A lot of things in the WNBA can be related to the Caitlin Clark factor, and there's a lot of things that happened because of her being in the league and because of her being who she is. And there's a lot of ripple effect. So now we're getting into those things that aren't directly related to her, but I think still correlate back to what she is doing for the league as a whole. And one of those things is the trade that we just saw in the WNBA offseason. Never in the history of the WNBA have multiple former number one picks been moved. And in my opinion, Mo, that's because when you play in a league that is what the WNBA has been for most of its existence, when you get good players, you keep good players.
Right.
You don't give away good players. You have them and they are yours, and that is that. But the WNBA is entering a new era, Mo. People are coming to games. People think the WNBA is cool. People want to play in the WNBA. They want to be a part of this. They're moving merch. They're selling tickets. They're making money. And general managers in the WNBA are finally looking at things and saying, let's do some stuff here. Let's take some swings. As opposed to saying, let's hoard what we have and hope it's enough. And again, directly related to Caitlin Clark? No. Ripple effect from Caitlin Clark? I'd say yes. This trade, Mo, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. It involved the Seattle Storm trading 6-time All-Star Jewell Loyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a multi-team move that sends 3-time All-Star Kelsey Plum to the Los Angeles Sparks, which means Kelsey is going to join Angel Reese and that young lady whose name I can never remember.
Cordova.
Yes, Cordova, as their new 3-headed monster over there with the Sparks. In return, let's not downplay what the Aces just did. As critical as Kelsey Plum has been to the Aces' success the past 3 or 4 years, they are getting back a player in Jewell Loyd who is an absolute killer from the perimeter. So let's not pretend that they are giving up something and not getting anything in return, because they are 100% getting something of value in return. Mo, what do you make of the move, and what do you make of the immediate impact on Los Angeles and Las Vegas?
Let's start with Kelsey Plum. Still a good player. Still plays at a high level. Not a great defensive player. She's really a really talented offensive player, and she's one of the more popular players in the entire league. Yes. So I think that also elevates the Sparks as well in that way. Very popular player. But for the Aces, you're right. They're actually getting a better player. It's no way to cut it. She's a better player. Jewell is a dog, and on both ends of the floor, she's a better player. The Aces made a move that said, we're going to get back to the finals again and get another chance. Like they're thinking about everything we can do right now because we've got the best player in the game. We want to max out her prime. That's all that move was for. It's a move that I think it's a win for both teams, but I don't think the Sparks are championship contenders. The Aces, I think this squarely puts them in the favorites role going into this season.
And again, there's also draft picks are moving around. The Storm acquired the number 2 pick in the 2025 WNBA draft from the Sparks. The Sparks are getting the number 9 pick from Seattle. The Aces are receiving the number 13 pick from LA. So there's picks going back and forth in the move as well. The Storm getting the number 2 pick is also pretty big in this, because there's 3 or 4 headline names coming out of women's college basketball that are going to be in the WNBA draft, Mo. So this is going to set them up to have a nice draft as well.
Yeah, I look, I'm thinking of people like Juju is one of the first person to come to my mind. There's a lot of talented perimeter players coming out in this college draft. So I look, this is a big draft, and it's funny because the Aces, they're part of that trade. The 13th pick, this is a very deep draft. So this is one of those rare trades, which it's a big trade, but I think all the teams involved, they made the right moves for their franchise.
And to your point, and people may not quite understand this, there have been years where if you had the 13th pick in the WNBA draft, you weren't getting a starter.
Right.
Let's just be honest. If you go back and look at the history of the WNBA draft, there have been years that outside of the first 2 or 3 women who were picked, you weren't getting starters necessarily in the draft. This year is not going to be that case. The draft is deep this year for the WNBA. So although the Aces may not get a starter at 13, I definitely think they're going to get a piece at 13 that they are going to be able to use for the upcoming season. On top of the fact, like you said, they did upgrade from Kelsey, despite her being a fan favorite and despite her probably being, if not the most popular player, the second most popular player on that team. Not the best player or the second best player, but the second most popular player.
No question.
What they are getting back in place of her popularity is a better player. So just by that move alone, the Aces are going to be better this upcoming season. And then if they can add something at that number 13 pick that contributes positively at all this upcoming season, that's just icing on the cake.
Agreed. And because the Aces are actually a pretty deep team, it wouldn't shock me if they turned around and traded that pick.
And moved it, yeah.
And get some kind of value that way. Because everything they do or that they're doing, it's all about what can we do these next 2 to 3 seasons in terms of like stockpiling championships. So it's going to be very exciting.
All right, Mo, take us to a close on a Tuesday.
Thank you guys so much for joining Chris and I. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire Network. Wire to Wire Network, we appreciate you.
Hey, make sure you're back here same time, same place tomorrow. Lots of NBA talk kicking off on a Wednesday here on Coffee and Sports. All of that and more. It's the morning show powered by Wire to Wire Network, and we'll see all of you